The Press is reporting that a bipartisan group of U.S. senators has reached a tentative deal on the $14 billion plan to help the auto industry. Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid told the Associated Press, quote, "We're ready to go." The deal is not quite final, though. NBC News reports that Connecticut Senator Chris Dodd, the chairman of the Banking Committee, has just spoken on Capitol Hill, and he said, quote, "We agree on some things, but not on all." What no one knows at this hour are the details of the agreement, or if Republican senators are going to go along with it. It's those Republican senators who spent much of today threatening to kill the plan that passed the House last night. They have been pushing a plan of their own that would reduce wages and benefits for U.S. auto workers, so they would be closer to those for U.S. workers at Japanese car makers. Now, it's not clear how much of the Republican proposal is in the tentative deal. Apparently, may be reached tonight. Now, why is this such an exciting cause for Republican senators, reducing American wages? Why are they unifying around the Kill the Workers plan? What's the principle they are fighting to uphold here?
Let me be clear. I'm not trying to block this package in spite of job losses that would occur if these companies went down. I'm trying to block this package because of that.
It is delusional to think that a company which spends $71 per labor hour could compete with a company in the same industry that spends $49 per labor hour.
They're rallying around the idea of the extinction of the American auto worker. You know, Senator, show me the paycheck that shows the average American auto worker taking home $71 an hour, and I'll show you my national health care plan ID card. Neither of those things exist. But let me get this straight. Senate Republicans have found, at last, an organizing principle, a reason for living, after just getting their hats handed to them in the past two elections. And that reason for living is to reduce American wages unilaterally from Washington by fiat. Because it's a little-known free market conservative principle, I guess, that politicians should run companies from Washington, purely for the purpose of cutting the income of the Americans who get paychecks from those companies. Wow. Republican Senator Jim DeMint of South Carolina says this about the car companies. He says, quote, "I'm not trying to get rid of the unions, but I am saying that they appear to be an antiquated concept in today's economy." Anybody else looking forward to the day when being a union-busting Southern senator who crusades against good wages for American workers on principle is itself an antiquated concept? Well, Jim DeMint is also looking deeply into his principles about the American economy and Americans who have to work for a living, and there he has found riots.
We're going to have riots. There are already people rioting because they're losing their job and somebody else has been bailed out.
He says, we're going to have riots. There are already people rioting because they're losing their jobs and somebody else is being bailed out. Violence, he says, because I guess workers will be angry the American auto industry doesn't slide into ruin. The point here is that Americans are worried about jobs, good jobs, being able to stay employed and make a living. There are millions of American jobs connected to the auto industry. But query this. Query why those Southern Republican senators don't seem to have those same worries that Americans do at large. Or if they do have those same worries, why aren't they acting on them? If you query that, you end up finding two things. Number one, you find an ideological hatred of unions. If you have a minute, Google Textile Strike 1934 if you want to unspool that history. You find this ideological hatred of unions, right? And you also find what's euphemistically called parochial interests. In this case, it's foreign, non-union car companies in these Southern senators' home states. South Carolina, home to Senator DeMint and Lindsey Graham, is home to two BMW plants. Republican Senator Mitch McConnell's home state of Kentucky is also home to Toyota's largest plant outside of Japan. Senator Richard Shelby, the top Republican on the Banking Committee, he has foreign automakers Honda and Hyundai and Mercedes in his home state of Alabama. And Senator Bob Corker, who presented the Republican plan that may be moving ahead today, he's from Tennessee, home of a Nissan plant. All foreign plants, all non-union. The latest NBC Wall Street Journal polls show that more Americans support the auto bailout plan than they do the already approved $700 billion Wall Street bailout. Today, President-elect Obama expressed his concern about the end of the American auto industry.
We cannot simply stand by and watch this industry collapse. Doing so would lead to a devastating ripple effect throughout our economy.
That's what most Americans are worried about with this issue. What are the Republican senators worried about, who say that they don't want a deal unless they can break the unions in its way? Besides their friends in Japan, I guess, who have state-subsidized plants in their home states, we can tell that Senator Corker's plan requires even further cuts from union workers and stakeholders in the companies than already have been offered. Blame the workers, especially blame the United Auto Workers. That's what we're hearing from Senate Republicans as our auto industry skids toward the brink of extinction. And they're saying if you do save the industry, they want to do it with conditions that break the unions while the industry is being saved. It appears to me that Senate Republicans are on an ideologically driven union-busting adventure here that happens to have the prospects of increasing the market share of the foreign-owned companies who work in their states. American-owned companies and the American economy as a whole, be darned, those foreign-owned companies that serve the individual states of these senators who are objecting to this bailout, they're the ones who are getting served. Why aren't Democrats making them filibuster this? Making them stand up and defend this, if this is really what they want the country to know they're doing?